Welcome everyone to the Houston Tech Rodeo and to our second virtual reality based session. So my name is Walter Davis. I am organizer of AWE Nite Houston, and we're we're sort of the immersive technology partners, helping to market and support some of these virtual reality led sessions. Someone who's not with me today, but I wanted to make sure and give them a shout out is also the VRARA Association, who are also in Houston, and Fasal, he's the president of the Houston chapter for VRARA, and Fasal and I have both been a great partner. We work together on quite a few projects and things, trying to encourage encourage and support the use of immersive technology in the Houston area. So that's virtual reality or augmented reality technology, and as you can see, sort of each of our association sort of listed there, and Houston's been a really great ecosystem for this technology. Now, to kick it off, so today we have with us one of our founders, so an immersive technology founder. So we have with us Todd Daniel, who is a managing partner at Shinybox Interactive, and they've been doing some amazing things in this space. And in the immersive space, both in AR and VR. And I won't go into any detail, but I know Todd's going to be able to take it away and showcase a lot of some of the work that they've done. And well, actually, and even you'll see one of the benefits even of this technology is, so Todd and I, neither of us are in the same location. Well, we're both in Houston, I think right now. I think you're in Houston, Todd.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't ask for Houston.
Or Atlantis, depending on, yeah.
Right.
Depending on how much rain you get.
But yeah, so we're both in the Houston area. But I'm up in North Houston, and Todd's over in Houston. But we're not physically in the same location. But it's like Todd's right here next to me on stage, and we're just sharing a stage for this presentation. So that's just one of the many benefits of this technology and bringing people closer together. So, anyways, thank you all for joining. I'm going to pass it over to Todd. So, Todd, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Walter. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. As Walter mentioned, my name is Todd Daniel. I'm the managing partner at Shinybox. And really quickly, I'll go through some quick housekeeping rules. We have about 30 to 35 minutes of content today. We're going to walk through some slides. We'll talk a little bit about our background. We'll share some of our work with you all that we've done for our clients. We'll also talk a little bit about why we are excited about Houston and are based here in Houston. At the end, we'll wrap up with some Q&A questions that Walter will handle if you all have any questions for us. And during the presentation, we are using images and slides to save on bandwidth, but I do have video content that the team put together for this event, and I'll have QR codes and web addresses at particular parts of the presentation. And if you can snap pictures of those if you're in Altspace, you look over on your menu to the left, there's a camera. You hit that button, it will take an image for you so you can refer to it later. But if you're watching this on a web browser, obviously you can access that content pretty quickly. And yeah, I think that's about it. I will get going here. So as I mentioned, Shinybox Interactive is a software consultancy and development group here in Houston, Texas. We were founded in 2012, but most of us have worked together for about 15 years. We started working together making AAA video games at a studio here in Houston before we started our company. We primarily focus on two different types of software. We create enterprise software and also entertainment software. I'll show you more of our enterprise software pieces today and talk through that process a little bit. But for some of our background, or at least for my background, I began software development in 2007. As I mentioned, I started working with a company here in Houston called Pi Studios. It was a AAA contracting partner studio, so it was mostly white label work, which means that larger studios or larger publishers would come to our team to get us to help create products for them or to assist on development of very large products. I was very lucky during my time there. We worked with a lot of really great partners, folks like Activision, Electronic Arts, Microsoft, lots of really big names in the video game industry. And we were very lucky to be able to work with them on their products. We also were lucky enough to work on a very wide range of genres in that area too. So for me, working on very different projects to different people really helped bolster my product management experience. So when it came to starting our company, I was a lot more comfortable in the software space having that experience. When we get into looking at some of the work that our team has created, we do pride ourselves on making very immersive simulations. And a lot of that technique and a lot of that skill comes from the experience we all built working on some of the projects like you see behind us. Pi Studios was a was a company that worked with a lot of different products. Through their life cycle, they touched on some of the largest brands in gaming when they were open. That studio did close in 2010, but in 2012, we came together to create Shinybox. So a lot of people ask us, the company we work with closed. A lot of the video game industry that was in Houston also closed or moved out of the area, and they asked us, why did we stay in Houston when we started Shinybox? It's a great question. But some of the pieces to me that at least Houston resonates with, personally, I love the food. Like the food here in Houston is fantastic. Also, if it very rarely gets below freezing, but when it does, it's Armageddon. But that's like once a decade. So the weather here is also pretty awesome. But from the experience of working with other companies in Houston, Houston is a very large city. It is home to tons of companies, a huge variety of industries. It's very diverse, so you have a lot of different perspectives, and you have lots of different experiences that you can add to your team to bring your products even more credibility. And Houston has a massive impact on trade internationally. I think the Port of Houston is like the largest international port in the United States in terms of tonnage that it moves. Obviously, we have very large, we have large airports. It's great for us because we have clients on the East Coast and clients on the West Coast. So if we're trying to go somewhere, it's very quick for us to get to either place. I'm not taking a 7-hour flight from, DC to Santa Monica or San Francisco. For me, it's more of a 5-hour flight or a 4-hour flight. So Houston offers a lot of benefits in terms of just the growth that it has. The other piece that really for us is impactful is its industry density. There are so many companies and so many different industries here in Houston that for an XR company like ourselves, who builds immersive training simulations that are focused on safety and training, the amount of knowledge that these companies have is gigantic. Also, Houston is constantly growing. So there's always new workers entering various industries. Those companies have to have some way of training those new workers. At the same time, you have tremendous amounts of existing job knowledge that are leaving the area. Folks are retiring after working in the oil and gas industry for years, or folks are leaving Houston to go to other parts of the United States or areas around the world, and they take that knowledge with them. So our partners specifically are looking for ways to capture knowledge and experience that those employees are building on job sites, but to also have a way to take that knowledge and transfer it to a new employee base that's coming in. Most of those new employees are young. They are younger than the current workforce, so they also learn in different ways. They're not accustomed to sitting in front of a binder that is 400 pages long, talking about various OSHA regulations or safety requirements. They grew up with YouTube, they grew up with iPads, they grew up with Reddit. So they are very much more accustomed to assimilating data differently than these companies are used to training in the past. So for us, being able to work with industries to take that knowledge and then translate that knowledge into immersive XR simulations to help train the next generation of employees is really a driving factor for why we stay in Houston. I'll talk a little bit about our development process with our clients before we get into looking at some of the products that we've made. Our process is pretty straightforward. While we might be subject matter experts when it comes to creating immersive simulations, we have a huge amount of knowledge in building 3D environments and creating suspenseful or impactful interactions. What we're not experts on are the various simulations that we're creating in terms of work content. We partner with our clients very closely and very early on to match up with subject matter experts on their end that are going to impart that knowledge to us and help us to create really unique and realistic real-world simulations. So without that client providing subject matter expertise knowledge to us, our simulations aren't going to be as impactful when those employees are running through it. We also go through a process of creating a proof of concept solutions for all of our products. When we initially start working with a customer, we'll understand what their initial needs are, and then we'll go off and create a proof of concept or almost like a vertical slice of what we want that XR simulation to be. The reason we do this, I'll cover in a moment, but it adds to our ability to make sure that our products are created properly. And then when we deliver that product, the customer is ultimately getting what they need. We create proof of concept primarily to ensure that we are comfortable with the content we're going to be working on for however long the development period is going to be. We also create that content for our clients. When we're able to deliver a proof of concept to our client before we start full production on a product, it enables them to have confidence in our ability to make the simulation. But since we're providing these proof of concepts basically free of charge, we're creating them at our own expense. They're able to take that product, use it to build buy-in with team members in their company. They're not paying for a laborious, they're not going through this entire process of having a proof of concept made. They're not paying for those pieces. We do that specifically so we can be confident that we're able to create a simulation in the vein of a product they want, but also it enables us to give them something and say, look, we are the company to do this work for you. You can have confidence that we're going to deliver it. They can then take that proof of concept, share it internally, and build excitement and buy-in from the folks that are responsible for making the ultimate decision on their end. The next few sections I'm going to jump into are product demos. Again, we're using mostly images behind me to kind of illustrate some of those simulations. You can snap this QR code or go to this website. There are a couple showcases that I've created on Vimeo that will have a proof of concept demo reel. So I threw together some shots from proof of concepts that we've worked on in the past. There's also going to be a couple videos for each of the products I'm going to share with you today. And that'll kind of give you an idea of what the proof of concept stage looks like at the beginning, and then kind of what it looks like at the end when that product is fully delivered to the customer. I'll also try to share as much background on the simulations as I can. We do have to keep in mind that in some cases, our simulations can contain a lot of intellectual property. And in those cases, those aren't simulations that we can show to the public. However, the ones that I'm showing today, that we can. So we'll walk you through those products. I'll also have this QR code available at the end during the Q&A session. So if you don't get it now, don't worry. I'll show it again towards the end. Okay, so the first simulation that I want to talk about was one of, it involves scaffolding safety and awareness while working on a job site that has erected scaffolding. The client that we were working with wanted to focus on building safety awareness for new employees who were entering an active job site and they had to work on erected scaffolding. They were noticing that they could reduce injuries related to improperly built scaffolding if they had their employees be aware and focus on some very basic safety pieces before they even start to work on the scaffolding. If those employees could identify and recognize those hazards before starting work, they could eliminate on-job site injuries caused by improperly erected scaffolding in many cases. They also wanted us to make a simulation that was going to be procedurally generated that would also allow a unique experience for every user when they came in to use that simulation. So whenever someone came in to train on safe behaviors for scaffolding inspection or safety harness hazard inspection, each time they would do that, they would have a different result. They would have to rely on applying the knowledge that they had of those safe behaviors instead of rote memorization of where certain deficiencies were in the simulation itself. The simulation is built up of 3 very distinct modules that instruct employees on 3 key areas of working with scaffolding. One, the first module, we talk about inspecting safety harnesses. A safety harness is required for any employee who's going to work on a scaffolding that is higher than 6 feet tall. So if they're going to be working on a scaffolding and they're going to be moving up to a level higher than 6 feet, they have to have a safety harness equipped. And those safety harnesses have objects called safety retention lines on the back of them that help to resist a fall if someone were to have an incident and fall off a scaffolding. These safety harnesses need to be inspected regularly. They need to make sure that they're not damaged before an employee were to use this harness. If they put on a damaged harness and they did have an incident where they were falling on a scaffolding, that harness could break and the intention of that harness could be lost. So the first module involves employees inspecting harnesses for physical signs of damage, things like frayed or burned straps, buckles that wouldn't correctly close, safety retention lines that don't recoil properly. So the trainee will inspect that harness first. The next portion of this module will have the trainee checks for fit accuracy. So when they put it on, making sure that it's tight around their legs and it's centered properly. Once it's completed and they've gone through and they understand how to safely inspect a harness and then put one on, we then move them to the scaffolding inspection portion. We randomly generate scaffoldings of all sizes. You can have 1-level scaffoldings up to 3-level scaffoldings. We have around 20 unique deficiencies that, combined with the different permutations of building unique scaffolding, I don't like to use the word endless, but when we were trying to do the math on figuring out how many permutations we could build, it was easily north of millions. So when you tell people, hey, never going to experience the same scaffolding twice, kind of hard to believe, but if you look at the math, it's pretty accurate. Yeah, there is somebody, maybe they'll come in and hit the lottery and get one, but it's very rare that happens. Once they've gone through and they've inspected the scaffolding, the very last module that this simulation has in it involves working on an upper level scaffolding, but keeping in mind how important it is to be cognizant of dropped objects. So in a lot of cases, when you're working in a work site, people may leave tools, they may leave other objects on higher levels of scaffolding. If those objects aren't secured properly, someone could kick one of those objects off. If it tumbled off of the scaffolding, it can do significant damage to workers that are functioning beneath or the bottom levels of the scaffolding. So that portion of the module teaches the employee how to properly take care of objects that are too heavy to lift on their own and move those objects to the bottom ground safely. So that portion of the module is the same experience each time, since it's trying to instill skills around doing a specific amount of tasks working at that height. And the first 2 modules are procedurally generated. That's going to be one of the first videos that you can see on that showcase. So the scaffolding simulation was much more of a testing tool. So it tests for the employee's knowledge of if they understand the safe behaviors, if they can properly identify hazards, if they know what a good scaffolding should look like. That's a teaching tool. Next, that's a testing tool, I'm sorry. The next simulation we focused on was called energy isolation, and this was a very hardcore teaching tool. This was one of the first simulations that we created that dealt with teaching hazardous job site skills built around a very complex system. Teaches users how to understand energy flow in an active production facility. It also teaches them through a rigorous amount of steps how to isolate that energy flow, how to purge that energy flow out of the system, and then prepare that system for maintenance. In total, there are about 100 to 115 individual steps that these employees have to take in order to complete this particular simulation. But the benefits to the client was telling us about, and why we were excited for making it, were great, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. The other portion for this simulation is the beginning of this simulation is not randomly generated, since it is teaching very specific skills. It is the same simulation each time. The steps are the same, so that someone can come in and get used to doing these steps. In a lot of cases, when you have a new employee that's learning to do field maintenance like this, it may have never worked on an active processing plant doing these particular roles. When you're training those people, you have to go through a lot of steps. You have to take out very expensive insurance and liability insurance for bringing an untrained person onto a work site. You need to make sure you can team that new employee up with an experienced person. So you're taking someone off of a job site and pairing them with a new person so they can kind of show them the ropes and give them on-site practical training. And you also have to be cognizant of the functionality of that plant. You're not able to really take down a plant just to teach one new employee how to do a specific job requirement. This simulation allowed us to do that. We were able to build a variety of energy simulations and then have that employee do exactly what they would need to do on the real work site in VR, in the safety of a training room or a safety of an office, without having to go on site. We use the same tools that you use on site. We go through the same processes as they're written up in their processes and procedures manual. And the simulation itself, we worked with a group of subject matter experts around 5 months. And we would meet every single week and be very rigorous in going through each of the steps to make sure it was authentic and to make sure that when someone used this system, they felt, when they came away from using this simulation, they felt very confident They could do this work if they went to the work site. This simulation was the first time that we made a strict teaching simulation, and it really gave us a lot of experience when it came to building future ones. Our future simulations that we built, some of the ones I can't show today, are around steam turbine maintenance, and that was a system of taking apart a steam turbine in an active facility, doing maintenance pieces, putting it back together, running it through a set of checks. I mean, it gets very, very detailed and in-depth, and XR allows us to simulate that in a very safe way. It allows people to practice. They can fail and not hurt anyone, and also not feel bad at that failing. They're learning this process. So there's no additional pressure of them having to be on site since they can do all these pieces in VR. This simulation it does work with a tethered headset. This simulation came out before a lot of standalone headsets were available. So we are moving this into a standalone headset version as well. And there is also just a regular desktop version of this sim. So you don't need to have a VR headset to go through the simulation itself. You can practice on the desktop version, go into VR, get more hands-on experience, then migrate into working on an actual facility. So we typically build support for lots of different hardware in all of our simulations. The scaffolding simulation I showed a second ago, that also works on tethered headsets or all-in-one or standalone headsets. And the very last simulation that I kind of want to walk through today was one around lift safety. This is also one of our newest simulations that we created. This simulation was unique for us because we were working with a group of companies to create the simulation. So we had a group of subject matter experts from a variety of companies. Their entire aim was to create training software and training curriculum that shared safety knowledge. And their reason for doing this was, in many cases, when you're working on an active work site, I'll use Texas as a prime example, you will have employees that come onto your work site to do non-critical tasks that are handled by external companies or third-party companies. So you could have one employee who works on 4 different work sites through their entire week. That employee may not know each individual company's safety standards. They may not be aware of the personal company best practices that a company wants to uphold in terms of what they think is safe. We were working with this group of companies in order to create content that they could share across all of their employees. So every company would have access to the simulation. We would build shared vocabulary around safety pieces. We would also give them the ability to create a variety of simulations that they could use to simulate what it's like to work on a active work site that is in the process of lifting very heavy objects. One of the other requirements we had with this group was that it needed to be remote. We created this during 2020. The pandemic was in full force. Lots of our clients did not have in-person training sessions, but they did have people still working on active sites. They needed a way to be able to take the knowledge of a trainer or a facilitator and pass that on to new employees as they wanted to run them through this training. So we focused on building a simulation that would support multi-users, up to 26 different individuals. It could be run by one facilitator or one trainer. So you just needed one person available to go through the curriculum. They could teach an entire class of people and didn't need to be in the same room. They also can control every aspect of the simulation. They can choose what hazards are active in the simulation itself. They can choose how long the simulation is going to go. They have complete control. So they can sort of build a curriculum around what they want those safety experiences to be, and then deploy those to individual users as they see fit. Ultimately, this tool has been very successful for our clients. They can access the facilitator tool on a variety of hardware. They can use laptops, desktops, iPads. It does not require VR at all to set up and facilitate these scenarios. The scenarios themselves can be the VR simulation on a very low spec laptop. You can just run it in a desktop mode. It can be run with a tethered VR headset or a standalone VR headset. So there's lots of options for them to get this training out to folks as quickly as possible. And all you need is an internet connection if you want to run a facilitator version of this simulation. So I'm a facilitator. I can set up what I want this particular instance to look like. I post that session. People will then come in and join it. I can then, as the facilitator, control what each one of these trainees are experiencing. I can go into their viewpoint, see what they're looking at, understand what areas of the scene they've inspected, and ask them additional questions like, hey, Why did you not check X? Or did you not notice that these power lines were here? What were you looking at when you walked through this section? So it really gives the facilitator not only the ability to one trainer to train a room, they also can have that one-on-one interaction with individual users. This simulation right now is in circulation with our clients. They're using it. They've been using it since the beginning of the year. It also can be used without an internet connection and without a facilitator. So it will actually run through pre-built scenarios without having to have any sort of oversight from this facilitator. So that was a very quick run through of some of the simulations that we've made for our clients. Again, I'll pull up some QR codes here in a bit where you can go see videos of those if you're interested. However, if you are here in Houston and you want to get involved in the XR community, there are two great places to check out. The VR/AR Association, the Houston chapter, run by Faisal Sharif, who Walter mentioned earlier. AWE Nite Houston is run by Walter himself. These are two great places to get started if you're interested in learning about what's going on in Houston in terms of XR. If you are a company who is interested in bringing XR into your organization, or if you have existing XR solutions, Houston has an absolutely fantastic industrial XR forum. This is an event that's held every year here in Houston for the past 3 years. This year, the Global Summit is going to be a hybrid event. It'll take place from September 14th through the 15th. Again, local to Houston, lots of really good technology. If you're looking for XR vendors like Shinybox, we are there every single year. If you're looking to learn more about upcoming XR hardware, this is a great opportunity to do that. And since it's local, you can meet a lot of people that are going through the same sort of challenges or experiences you may have in your company. And it's just a really great place to network and get caught up on current events in terms of XR technology and solutions. And then if you are a person that wants to get involved in developing XR software, if you want to get involved in creating simulations on your own or looking for ways to break into the industry and work with a company, the XR Showdown is an absolutely fantastic program that is helmed by numerous sponsors here in Houston and run by Karen Snyder, who puts a tremendous amount of work into these events each year. On Friday, May 21st, this Friday, they're having a showing of their documentary that they created. I believe that the documentary covers like the past 3 years of XR Showdown events, but it's going to be at 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. at the Studio Movie Grill. If you're interested, please show up. It's going to be a really great event, and the products that these teams of students put together are extremely impressive. So please check that out, or Google XR Showdown to get more information. And then finally on my end, and we'll move kind of into the QA portion. If you want to contact me, I have the very easy job of standing up here and talking about a bunch of products that Shinybox has made. I am not a technical person. I didn't make those products. I'm part of the team that did, but I didn't create them. I get to work with individuals that seem like they do the impossible every single day, and I'm extremely thankful that I'm able to work with that group of people. So while I may not be able to answer your question, I can guarantee you I'm sitting next to somebody that has the answer. So if we can help in any way, shoot me an email. I'll give you any advice that we can offer. And if you're a company who wants to talk about XR solutions or look at some of the solutions we already have that we can maybe provide to you, you could augment your existing curriculum with, reach out. Other than that, I think that's it. Oh, one more thing. Please, on Friday, if you can, there's another Founder Focus event with Abstract, another company here in Houston. Check that out. I believe it's at 1:30 on Friday in AltSpace VR. And that content is going to be awesome. So if you're around, please check it out.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for sharing all that with us. And yeah, I mean, Industrial XR Forum, actually, I'll even give an extra shout out to that event. Industrial XR Forum, that is probably the first place I got to try in person a bi-directional treadmill, which was pretty fascinating, and it just shows how some of this hardware and software can work together to give you a real life-like experience. I wasn't really sure on what the impact something like that could have until I was at that event and realized some of the impacts hardware can have on these simulations. So yeah, I know we had a couple questions. I'm going to pull one in that I saw coming in. Actually, so there's a couple in here coming in from our stream, from those watching the stream. But if you're in here in VR, any of you guys have a question, feel free to raise your hand. Give me a moment, and I'll go through the unmuting process, etc., and give you the microphone, etc., megaphone. If any of you have a question, I'll also feel. Oh, we got one, then we'll pull that up.
I saw that you're going to show a documentary there in Houston. Is anybody going to show it here in AltSpace for those of us that can't go?
They may have that. I think they're going to have that available after. I'm not 100% certain. There is details on their website. They typically do have all of their content available digitally. I'm not doing that particular event on Friday, so I don't know if they're going to simultaneously stream it or not. It's a good question, but I unfortunately don't have the correct response for you there.
Sometimes people actually show a movie or a show here in Altspace. They'll build a little theater and actually do the thing right here. I actually went to school for to become an operator in the oil field. I haven't gotten a job yet, but is this kind of training software available for individuals to go practice with?
Oh, I see. It depends. Most of the training simulations that we do are bespoke, which means that we're creating them for clients to specifically address curriculum needs inside of their organization. So a lot of our simulations, when we create them, the client retains that simulation and uses it internally. There are simulations that are available, some places you can look for some of those pieces. SideQuest, I know, has a store that lots of people post training software on that you can use to get access to software on your headsets as well. I know I've seen probably a little over a dozen or so industrial-based simulations on that platform that you can look at and use. But most of our simulations are specifically created for clients' direct needs. We can adapt the simulations, like some of the ones you show here. We do; they are available to other organizations. We typically end up making subtle changes to some of the content to meet the requirements of what that company may have versus what the original product shipped with.
So I kind of get that you're presenting for businesses to get their apps created and things that the industry can use. But are there any opportunities for people that are learning about VR and Unity? And I've met some people in here that run VR studios. Is there if someone built a VR studio to contract with these companies for training, would that be a good idea, or what are the opportunities?
Yeah, so we are, that's what we do. We are a software development. We do enterprise solutions like creating VR simulations, and we also do entertainment, like video games, PC and mobile. We definitely think there's that obviously it's a great job to have. We love what we're doing. You absolutely can get involved. Like I mentioned earlier, there are tons of groups here in Houston, like the XR Showdown, like the AR VR Association, that can get you connected or at least expose you to folks that are going through the same process as you are in terms of learning, or companies that are looking to hire developers to help them create internal solutions for their companies.